It's 11:47 p.m. The house is dark. The dishwasher has finished its cycle. The air conditioner hums steadily in the background. You're lying on your side in bed. The blanket pulled to your chest. Your phone resting face down on your stomach, like you've already decided to sleep earlier tonight. Then you flip it over. A pale blue glow spreads across the ceiling. Your face reflects faintly on the black screen before it fully lights up. Your thumb moves through familiar apps. Messages, email, social media. Nothing urgent, nothing necessary. Then it pauses on your banking app. You opened it this morning. You checked the number this afternoon. No surprise deposits have appeared in the last few hours. You know that. You already know exactly what you're going to see. And you know how it's going to feel. But you tap it anyway. The app opens. A small loading circle spins for less than a second. Your balance appears. Nothing dramatic. No disaster. No miracle. Just a number sitting there. Quiet. You stare at it a little longer than you need to. As if, by looking harder, it might say something different. The room is still silent. No one else knows this moment just happened. You lock the screen. Set the phone down. Close your eyes. Tomorrow will move forward like it always does. But at 11:47 p.m., you were searching for reassurance. You already knew wasn't there. Mark is 47. He's a project manager at a mid-sized construction firm. The kind of job that isn't flashy, but steady. Deadlines, budgets, teams, responsibility. He earns $92 a year. Enough to support a family of 4 at a comfortable, middle-class level. Not extravagant, but not scraping by. He has 2 kids. One starting to look at colleges. One in high school, already talking about the future. Mark bought his house over a decade ago. The mortgage isn't gone, but it's halfway paid down. His 401k looks decent on paper. Not exceptional, not disastrous. From the outside, his life checks the right boxes. There's a car in the garage every night. The lawn gets trimmed on weekends. The family takes a short beach vacation each summer. There are presents under the tree in December. The neighbors see stability. His coworkers see reliability. The bank sees a clean credit history. Mark isn't reckless with money. He doesn't chase new cars every few years. He doesn't carry massive credit card debt. He doesn't live wildly beyond his means. He's done what he was supposed to do. Which is why the anxiety feels harder to explain. If you follow the rules, why does it still feel fragile? Mark doesn't talk about this with friends. It doesn't come up at barbecues. No one looks at him and thinks he's stressed about money. But late at night, when the house is quiet, when there are no emails or background noise to distract him, he opens his banking app like he's bracing for test results. Not because he's bankrupt. Not because he's drowning in debt. But because somewhere in the back of his mind, he isn't sure how wide the gap is between stable and secure. During the day, Mark is composed, organized, in control. At night, he's just a 47-year-old father, wondering if he's prepared for what he can't predict. And that's the quiet truth. Mark isn't an outlier. He's the modern picture of stability. Someone who looks fine on the surface, and still doesn't sleep as deeply as he'd like. 37%. 37% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money. Using a credit card, or selling something. $400. Not a major surgery. Not 6 months of unemployment. Just an amount small enough that you assume most people could handle that. A new set of tires. A transmission repair. A medical bill that falls below your insurance deductible. A last-minute flight to see a family member. Just $400. And yet, for 37% of the population, that money isn't sitting in an account, ready to absorb the hit. That's not traditional poverty. That's financial fragility. It's the condition where everything looks normal, until a relatively small expense exposes how thin the margin really is. Mark came across that number in a financial article. He didn't linger on it. At first, he assumed it didn't apply to him. He has steady income. He has some savings. He contributes to his retirement account. On paper, he's not in danger. But the number stayed in the back of his mind. If the car breaks down this week, what happens? If one of the kids needs an unexpected expense? If insurance covers less than expected? Can he handle $400? Yes. But that's not the real question. The real question is, what does it disrupt? Does it come from the vacation fund? From college savings? From the next month's buffer that was supposed to make things feel calmer? 37% sounds distant. But it doesn't just describe people living paycheck to paycheck. It includes households that look stable. People who go to work every day. Who pay their bills on time. Who own homes. Who have retirement accounts. But who don't have much room for error. The gap between fine and secure is often just a few $1,000s in true liquid savings. And Mark knows that. He isn't afraid he couldn't survive a $400 expense. He's uneasy about how often small disruptions quietly delay bigger goals. Every unexpected cost pushes something else back. A little less invested. A little less saved. A little more uncertainty. 37% isn't just a statistic. It's a reminder that a large portion of the country is operating with a thin financial cushion. And when the cushion is thin, a late-night glance at your bank balance doesn't feel neutral. It feels like a test. Mark doesn't say this out loud. But he understands something uncomfortable. He's not as far from that 37% as he once believed. There's a name for this loop: financial avoidance. It sounds technical. But the mechanism is simple. When money creates anxiety, your brain doesn't prioritize solving the problem. It prioritizes reducing the discomfort. And the fastest way to reduce discomfort is to avoid the source. Don't open the full budget spreadsheet. Don't calculate the retirement gap. Don't look too closely at net worth. Or choose a softer version of confrontation. Open the banking app. Glance at the balance. Confirm that nothing has collapsed. Then close it. Anxiety leads to avoidance. Avoidance creates lack of clarity. Lack of clarity fuels more anxiety. A quiet, persistent loop. Financial avoidance doesn't mean you're bad with money. It means you're trying to protect yourself. Because if you look deeper, you might discover the gap between where you are and where you want to be is wider than expected. And that's uncomfortable. Mark isn't impulsive. He doesn't spend recklessly to numb emotions. He isn't in denial about reality. But he also hasn't built a clear, simple, automatic system that removes uncertainty. During the day, he's busy. Project timelines. Team meetings. Driving kids to activities. There's always a reasonable excuse to say, "I'll look at it later." At night, when everything slows down, the questions aren't drowned out by noise. Is the emergency fund really enough? What if I lost my job for 6 months? Are we actually on track for college? Instead of opening a structured plan, Mark opens his banking app. Because staring at a single number feels easier than facing the full financial picture. In that moment, he isn't managing money. He's seeking temporary reassurance. And temporary reassurance is often enough to fall asleep. But by morning, the fragility returns. Financial avoidance doesn't create immediate disaster. It creates low-grade, ongoing stress. The kind that lingers because you know something needs organizing. But you haven't fully organized it. Mark isn't failing. He's operating without a clearly defined margin of safety. And when there's no visible margin, checking the banking app at 11:47 p.m. isn't about the balance. It's about measuring how secure you actually feel. Mark's stress isn't really about income. It's about not seeing a clear bridge between today and 30 years from now. And sometimes, clarity doesn't come from a complex strategy. It comes from very simple math. $300 a month. Invested at 8%. For 30 years. That's about $440. Not $1 million. Not early retirement at 45 money. But nearly $500,000. From an amount that doesn't dramatically change his lifestyle today. What is $300? A few dinners out each week. A slightly upgraded car payment. Subscriptions that quietly renew in the background. On their own, they feel small, but redirected automatically, month after month. They begin to do something Mark hasn't fully trusted before. They buy time. The real variable isn't the $300. It's the 30 years. Now change just one thing. Mark waits 10 years before starting. Still $300 a month. Still 8%. But only for 20 years. That grows to roughly $175. The gap isn't minor. It's over $250. Not because he invested more aggressively. Not because he found better returns. Simply because he started earlier. That's the part that shifts perspective. The largest differences in personal finance rarely come from dramatic salary jumps. They come from when you begin. Mark might find ways to earn a little more each year. But he cannot buy back 10 lost years of compounding. Time is the one variable you can't refinance. When he sees the numbers laid out this plainly, something changes. Security doesn't come from staring at a checking account balance at night. It comes from knowing that, whether he looks or not, a system is running quietly in the background. $440 isn't lottery money. It's consistency money. It's the result of small decisions repeated long enough to matter. And maybe for the first time, Mark begins to understand that the fragility he feels isn't about capability. It's about whether time is working for him, or still waiting for him to start. Mark's stress isn't really about the number in his account. It's about the space between today and certainty. Between, everything is functioning. And, if something happens, are we actually secure? 11:47 p.m. isn't the issue. The banking app isn't the issue. That moment simply concentrates every unanswered question into one quiet glance. Mark doesn't need to reinvent his life. He doesn't need to double his income. He doesn't need a high-risk investment. He doesn't need to become a financial expert. He needs a visible margin of safety. A fully funded emergency account. An automatic investment that leaves his checking account every month. A structure simple enough that it runs without constant attention. Peace rarely comes from dramatic change. It comes from steady repetition. He may still open his banking app at night. Habits don't disappear overnight. But one day, when he looks at that balance, he won't be silently asking, "Is this enough?" Because he'll know something else is in place. He'll know that a $400 expense won't derail an entire year. He'll know the investments are compounding whether he watches them or not. Stress doesn't disappear because you stop checking. It softens when you know you've prepared. Quiet wealth doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't create noise. But it's strong enough that at 11:47 p.m., you can put the phone down and actually sleep. Quiet systems beat midnight anxiety.